Hello and welcome back to the Rope Access and Climbing Podcast. I'm your host, Mikey Stevenson, and today we are talking about gear manufacturing in Canada with Igor Stomp. If this is your first time here, please make sure to subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. So stay tuned. Step into your harness and get ready for a podcast about the vertical world. All right, so let's dive into today's episode. I am joined here with Igor, and I might as well just dive into some introductions for the people that are unaware of who you may be.
Yeah, I'm Igor Stomp, the owner of Eyolf, and we are a manufacturer of professional climbing equipment. And what that means is basically we manufacture equipment, the way I see it, that is used as a tool that has a purpose. Either you sit in it to do your job, or you sit in it to protect yourself from falling, like a zip line. But work at height is not something that we do. So it's more of a work tool than actually a protection, a means of protection, just in case. That is kind of the way we have approached it and the markets that we serve. So you want to know which markets we serve?
We'll dive into that a little bit later.
Okay, good.
Awesome. Awesome.
Because I could keep going now. Just,
Yeah. All right. So today we are going to be talking to a manufacturer here in Canada. And you're based out of Ontario, Canada. And, we're going to talk about the industries that you serve, certification bodies that you deal with your equipment specifically.
Yes.
What kind of industries you may be looking into getting, pursuing into maybe. And, that's kind of the meat and potatoes of it, and we'll dive into it. So to get this off the ground here, I would just kind of want to ask, where did you get your start? Like, where did this company start? How did you found it? And what drove you to start manufacturing equipment?
It's in my blood. I always have done it. I always have manufactured things. That's my first job, was to build prototype of machinery, and some of them are really big. I had to climb. I had a bit of a background in climbing and caving, and married the two without even knowing that it was rope access, and it didn't exist. We just, my boss at the time gave me an opportunity to say to go to the local outdoor store and buy some rope, and I was like, yes! So I bought all the wrong equipment for the job, but all the right equipment for the weekend, and that's how it kind of got started. And as I grew in my position, I got more responsible for the safety of the workers, the people that were working for me and doing the projects. At height, because like I said, flare stack is pretty high and chimney is pretty high, so I often attended to just make sure that they did safe, and not a lot of equipment was suitable for it. So I kind of on my own married the two. And like many people in our industry, the first time you come across a Petzl catalog, it was one of those great moments where you're like, wait a minute, there's more tools, there's more specific items out for it, and reaching out to others and meeting up with others. It slowly started for me to become something about equipment. And I like I said, I manufactured things. I did the welding, did the machining, did the instrumentation. So my background is definitely in the electronics, and then working, and then going back to school, became a physics teacher with a design and technology degree. So yeah, building stuff, building gadgets, that's who I am. So coming to Canada after a career of 10 years in Europe, working for the petrochemical and the incineration market, the waste incineration market, we got an opportunity to come to Canada. We took it, took the kids, and my wife and I came to Canada to start. The first year was really tough, because I thought I could become a teacher. Like many immigrants coming to Canada, you are let into the country based on your credentials, and then the federal is good to go, and then the provincial government says, oh, wait a minute, you need to get certified. And that was a bit more tricky than I initially thought. But a friend of mine after 9/11 was working in New York, and he called me up and said, "I need your help." And I said, "Well, I can't work in the States, right? I mean, I'm in Canada." I said, "No, I got a job in Toronto." And the one mistake that I made, instead of saying like, "Yeah, I'm in," he said, "I should have asked you how much. How much are you paying me?" And that was the CN Tower job. So that got us started on the CN Tower. I got basically the responsibility to make sure the job would go right, pick up people in the airport, make sure the paint is there, and go to the meetings and open up in the spring and close down in the winter. And that was a great job. It lasted 8 years. So in the meanwhile, working with the Ministry of Labor, of course, and working with the federal government, because the tower is owned by the federal government, I got an opportunity to see what the market was about. I talked to other manufacturers in the area, and it was basically one of those things where nobody was interested in rope access. Nobody knew what rope access was. So I thought, you know what, I can do this. And don't forget, in Europe, by the end of my career, working all kinds of different projects, I was already designing fall protection equipment for a fall protection company. So I had a bit of experience in getting products standardized and certified, and working with the testing of products. So with all of that together, I saw that, you know what, in Europe there's a lot more manufacturers doing all these specialized equipment, and here in Canada we basically have nothing, nobody. So rope access was new. Climbing brands, there were a few out there, but nothing major, nothing like Europe. And I thought like, I like to do this. Also knowing that if you climb, it might not last forever, right? So you might not be able to climb until you're 70. And the way, with coming to Canada, you definitely take a big hit financially. So your pension, all this stuff. So I needed something that I could do the rest of my life. And I thought, like, you know what, that'd be nice. Talk about the good old days, like today, and manufacture some equipment.
Absolutely.
And then sell them to the world. And that's
Perfect.
what started in 2001.
2001 is when you started. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great news. As one of, if not the only manufacturing company in Canada, it's really inspiring to see that there is still somebody out there and there is still room in the market to expand. So that's awesome. Let's see. Let's dive a little bit head first into the manufacturing side of things here. For you, you don't make just harnesses such as I have right behind me here, but you also make other items, equipment. Do you mind diving in a little bit of like some of the products that you provide the workforce?
Yeah, our company mainly focuses on harnesses and lanyards. That is how we started, but that was not my beginning. And my beginning was pure fall protection, lifeline systems, anchors. That's how that's what I did in Europe, and brought that information with me, of course. And I felt the harnesses was one of those last things. The textile was one of the last things. I learned it in school. And of course, when I started working in Canada, building kits, I made some bags, I made some other accessories that were non-certifiable. So that, that was no problem in that regards to get started with. And I thought like, well, let's start with something that I don't have the experience with, because I got the time and I got the knowledge to do the other ones, but I also know that that's going to be more money involved. And once you fall into the trap as a business to run the business, you don't have time to do something new. So we started to basically use the time that I had, because I was working at CN Tower, so we had a bit of money coming in, to develop harnesses and learn more about the machinery. And it is a black art. Like rope access, the textile industry is not like you can go to college or university and learn how to make harnesses. And of course, coming from Europe, having worked with some of the people that are in the market there, I learned, I saw what the machinery was used, and I learned the machinery from the Germans, and I learned, the stitching patterns from the people at Troll at the time, doing some of the inspection courses. So, and they're still helping, funny enough, they're still out there. They're still in touch with me after 25 years of learning to meet them. We still get that bit of element from people from other manufacturers that say, hey, don't you do this? Or have you thought about that? And vice versa as well, right? We get a lot of recognition now. So we started with harnesses, we do lanyards and slings. And now we're developing the anchor systems that I did a long time ago, and hardware. So thanks to Corona, we have some more time, of course. We bought a CNC milling machine 2 years ago in order to work the D-rings, the new style D-rings that I wanted to develop into the harnesses. But now we have more time left over to develop other pieces of equipment that can help our market and the certification. And we're going to talk more about it, but the CSA certification and CE and NC, they're getting more specified, they're getting more specific. So a lot of equipment, a lot of manufacturers might not be interested in just getting, to make one product that meets our market or our needs particular. So besides me thinking very, selfish, like I can become a manufacturer in Canada, there is definitely now also a need for it to have a manufacturer here that is willing to invest and spend time and be a competitor to others. While most other manufacturers are thinking of retirement, we still have 20 years to go. So that makes us unique in the market. Yes, we're 20 years behind to most other manufacturers, but we're still out there. We're still young. We're still excited. We're still looking at things, and we bring something to the table that most of them don't have, and that is that experience. Actually, have done the job ourselves. So throughout the years, and you might have yourself as well, and many other people out there too. You're a product of your environment, and Absolutely. You will find a solution to your problems. And if you're out there working, you might think like, this product doesn't work, or this thing doesn't sit, or this, I wish I could make something else. And that's often how product development goes. And you might borrow for something from another manufacturer, you might adjust it, you might build something yourself. And in our case, we got the luxury that we can actually, do that and do it all in-house. That is another thing that makes us, very unique. So every element of the harness that is right behind you is made here in Fergus, from the padding to the end-terminal stitching. The webbing is actually woven to our specs. It's very unique.
That's awesome. And I know that you've shown a prototype harness with kind of like the rigging plate concept.
Yes.
How is that coming along, if you don't mind me asking, on the prototype side? Are we almost looking at like is that something going into production? Are we going into the point of certification, or is that kind of a one-off thing, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. It's a good question. It takes time. For us, it takes time. We're not a type of company. I'm not the type of person that's willing to just, make something fast and then throw it out there. I've learned that if I do that, we might have huge recalls, might have a huge problem over something that I might have overlooked. Mm-hmm. So our field testing, we take that very serious, and we're in the phase where we are finishing off our technical file. So literally the one that is out there on social media is the first prototype that we built. And now it's time for rigorous testing and field testing. So standards are one thing. We could get it certified. I know it will pass. But the next step is actually, how's the wear and tear on the material? What is the buckles are going to be like? What is the webbing doing? And yes, we have borrowed a lot of elements from the Viking harness because we know it works. But now it's also time for us to see if we can modernize and automate some of the elements that we're doing on the Viking. So it goes back and forth, right? It's You have one product that is working really well. And I know that our market, the people in our market, is very conservative. If you make an element, don't make huge changes. Build something new, separate, and that's where that concept comes from. And the rigging plates are definitely out there. I don't know how it's going to be accepted. So we're going to build the first 10 prototypes, and hopefully by the end of the year they will be out there, and then people will get them and try them out for us and see how they fit, see how the sizing will work, see how the D-rings will hold, learn how to work with those D-rings, see what the benefits are, or maybe there's no benefits at all. We might change that again, but it gives us a time to, before we really bring it out there and get it onto the markets, it's going to take probably not a year before you'll see a production model floating around. And of course, the price is also very different, right? It's more expensive. All those custom D-rings are not cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. So aside from that one that's in prototype now, and the Viking harness that I have behind me, are there other harness options out there for people that are looking to kind of check out a new harness option out there?
Yeah, the Valhalla harness, the one that we just talked about, There's going to be an Arborist version of it as well. And that's kind of our opening harness for the Arborist market. We have made other Arborist harnesses for other brands. So we have produced Arborist harnesses. So we know what is required, but we never done one ourselves. And it is a bit of a kind of a new market for us. I think for myself, it's very important to know what it's like to climb something before I can make something. And with the Arborist market, I'm kind of scared. The tree is not a piece of steel. It's a very different animal, and no,
very different.
Stories about that, and no, they scare me. Those trees. But I thank God I do have a lot of arborists, local arborists, that are helping me and making me understand what they are looking for and what they want, and that's part of designing as well. You have to be very careful to not go with fashion and try to make something that somebody else is already doing. You really want to make something that is a good working and a good product for the end user, basically. So if an arborist comes to us and he points to something out that somebody else might have, we might not go for it, although it might, we have to try it out. And the arborist harness, and of course, arborists like to buy their own harnesses, so they're willing to spend a bit more money on it as well. So it's going to be more like the Valhalla harness, where it's more beefed up and more luxury, more material in it, just unlike the Viking harness. The Viking harness is a real workhorse, and that there is actually a bridge available for the Viking harness that we have made, but we've never really made it commercially available to the market. We have made it for other arborists that were asking for a simple harness and an SRT harness, because that's the marriage, right, between rope access and arborist. It is that SRT technique, as they call it, single rope technique, that they want to do. So they do want the chest ascender, they do want the D-ring, they do want the bridge, because they're very used to it. And we're trying to marry those two. And the Viking harness with the bridge initially was the first jump, until we realized, like, now we shouldn't modify the Viking, we should make it more, we should do more with that particular harness. And then the last one, and that is kind of the new market for us. Although we have built full arrest harnesses in the past, we are making a new full arrest harness that is particularly for the North American market, not for the European market, pure for the North American market. And that's new to us. So there's going to be a full arrest harness coming out as well. It won't have fancy D-rings. It will just still be steel, because these people that are work at height are a bit different. They do tend to use it as a piece of just in case. So we want to make sure that we're using equipment that is also certified, CSA certified, right? So that's the element of complication that we have with the full arrest versus the rope access and the arborist harness, is the certification of the components.
Right. Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, so diving into the next question here then, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what industries do you supply specifically right now? So like, obviously, rope access is a primary industry that you service. Obviously, I have one of your rope access harnesses now. You did speak a little bit about the fall arrest industry, and we'll dive into that a little bit further here shortly. But where else are you kind of looking at, or what other industries are you pursuing in the future?
As you said, rope access is our biggest market, and everybody kind of in that market knows us. Our second market is definitely the adventure industry. We have grown into that market over the last 15 years to be one of the major players. Some of the big companies might not want to hear it, but we built products that meet their requirements. We really have listened to them. Again, it's something that I grew into based on a local zipline company that basically had a problem, and we solved that problem, and we basically grew with them. Their engineers were out there, so we sell the adventure equipment all over the world. It goes really from the Himalayas to Japan, to the US, to Europe, to the Middle East. It is literally everywhere, and the numbers are definitely staggering. It's almost to the point where it's secondary. It's secondary to rope access, especially with COVID. It has taken that second place for sure, but it will outgrow. My expectation is that it will outgrow the rope access.
That's
There's a
interesting.
lot of growth in
Hmm.
it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And of course, with that comes a few other opportunities. All the equipment that we use in the invention industry is all certified to a recreational standard, the CE
Hmm.
standard. So
Yep.
we do have a lot of recreational products, but we're not a recreational climbing company. That is something that we've had conversations in the past, where meetings with mountain equipment people, for instance. And one of the messages that I got from the industry is that there are already a lot of brands out there, and we will be just a small speck on the radar from all these people, and not having, of course, being a small company, not having a global reach is a very, very complicated. But again, in Canada, we have the best mountaineering fields, the alpine fields in the world, the best climbing in the world, and untouched territories. There is so much potential growth in this market. There's so much to do. It's, yeah, you want to be part of it, right? As a Canadian company, you almost feel obligated. Forget about the rest of the world, but just focus
Yeah.
on Canada. And that is just exciting. Hence the reason there are mountains on the back, because
Yeah.
it's a passion, and it's not always that you think about money. Maybe you should, but it's where the blood goes, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah, and so maybe we will approach that market a bit different.
Hmm.
Like you said, we're small, so we can be
Yep.
flexible. We can be smart about it. We have, of course, with the rope access industry, there are a lot of climbers in Alberta and BC, and we know them because I either have evaluated them in the past for sprats, or have
Yeah.
worked with them, or trained with them, or trained them, or it's a small market, and we know the people out there. They know
Yeah.
us. A lot of guys ask us about, hey, when are you coming out with a recreational harness? And by the way, if you do, can you build this in, do that, do such, all the things that we gathered. I think our approach is going to be to build a semi-professional mountaineering harness and deal with the search and rescue teams
Yeah.
initially, and
Yeah.
build something that fits within our image, fits within our what we build, what we do, something solid, something bomb-proof, something functional,
Hmm.
instead of just having climbing as a fashion statement, right? Because
Yeah.
that tends to go. We're not a clothing company, and unfortunately, we see more and more climbing companies becoming clothing companies. It's all about the image, and I think
Yeah.
that's where we might have, maybe there's an opportunity, a new market share, and not having that fashion element, but just having good, solid products out
Yeah.
there.
And more functional than, looks pretty.
Yeah,
Something that works for these people that are, doing mountain rescue. Something
exactly.
lightweight but sturdy.
Yeah,
Something that gives options and security for those individuals that are,
yeah,
going into the some people's worst nightmares are these people are, flying into underneath a helicopter to kind of come and save you. So that'd
yeah,
be a great industry to attack.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely something that is in the back of the mind. And
Hmm.
then the rest of the markets that we deal with in smaller numbers, but we still deal with the fire service, of course, the rope rescue teams that are out there,
Yeah.
tactical, the special forces, the military, everybody that does work at heights in a professional manner. Think about
Yeah.
the rope access often, spills over into other industries, where other industries are looking at rope access for certification and opportunities. So they'll buy equipment from us because it just fits better for them than a piece of fall protection equipment. But fall protection is
Yeah.
still, like I said, I come from that market. Fall protection is definitely where I started in this market. So I know that market. I know how it feels. Like I said before, we're developing a whole new anchor line. We're looking at all kinds of different solutions, North American solutions. So I've adopted some of the European anchors, the yellow anchor that I designed a long, long time ago. And when I left the Netherlands,
Hmm.
my old boss, Lawrence, at the time said, Igor, thank you very much for making me a lot of money. So maybe it's time for me to make some money with that yellow anchor. And we are trying to, work with people, trying to test. That's the big thing that's going to come out this summer, is doing more testing on wood structures and see what
Hmm.
anchors mean for wood structures. I've seen some horror videos from Germany where half the roof flies off, but it comes down to education as well. And that's something we should
Yeah.
talk about as well. I mean, it's standards and training and end users out there. The fall protection market kind of scares me, because the lack of education is definitely something that is a serious factor for us, to be very careful in that market, because we don't want people to get hurt. So
Yeah.
anything we do will have that rope access approach of, hey, you need to learn how this product works. Without it, you're
Yeah.
not allowed to use it.
Yeah, it's interesting the amount of fall protection courses I've taken over the years, including the Ministry of Labor one in Ontario. You sit there for 8 hours. They spend 4.5, 5 hours just talking about the legislation, reading the legislation,
Yeah,
and 60-70% of the class is falling asleep,
yeah,
right? Like you're working with tradespeople going into an environment that's heavily
yeah,
regulated. And yes, obviously the regulation is important, but it also comes down to knowing your audience, but also,
exactly.
reading out of the legislation word for word is going to put people to sleep. You kind of got to make it a little bit more entertaining, a little bit fun, and better slideshows or something. But yeah, it's, the knowledge is, you show up for your 8 hours, you get a piece of paper, says, hey, I got my ticket, go to work. Where the rope access industry is, it's tested on competence and understanding of the equipment and gear selection and,
Yeah,
how to inspect it properly, stuff like that. So I think the course could be, modernized,
yeah,
could be a good way to put it. But yeah, it's definitely a lacking problem. As a tradesperson myself, I understand what it's like to be in a fall arrest system. And the rule number one is don't fall,
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
it's obviously not the best rule, but
But it's so true.
it's
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have two
yeah,
options really. One, you're gonna fall a really long way and probably get really hurt, or two, don't fall.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
let's stick to the minimal outcome
Yeah,
there. So
and it goes.
yeah,
And
but before we, I guess we can kind of transition to the next question with that, which will kind of blend nicely, is you deal with a lot of different standard organizations. And you've mentioned it a couple times here, CSA, NFPA, ANSI, EN, talking, you're on the line with, the conformity to European and the underwriters laboratories. So for the people out there, CE and UL. Um, you know, how is it working with those organizations and making equipment to uphold these standards? I've heard it time and time again. I've been involved in some testing myself, and CSA seems to be the hardest one to, you know, adhere to. Obviously, that's a good thing here in Canada. If it gets that final approval of CSA stamp, it's a good thing.
yeah,
But the difference between CSA and ANSI can vary drastically, and not just in temperature rating, but in just quality rating as well. Um, how would you best describe your experience with these organizations as
yeah,
a
yeah,
as a
yeah.
collective?
Let's go down the row. I mean, there's a whole list of standards, and then the
Yeah,
laboratories that test them. So there's a difference between having a product CSA certified or tested, and
yeah,
using the logo from CSA. Those are two separate things. But most people out there don't understand that. So that goes back to education again. And of course, CSA is a private organization, so they are, they do what they need to do, and they deliver a product. But the legislator requires people to have, for instance, in the construction industry in Ontario, there's a little green book. In the little green book, it says you have to use a CSA certified harness. So we deal with that by having our harnesses tested and certified by a European laboratory or a professional engineer here in Canada. And we deal
yeah,
with somebody in the States as well. So there's a lot of work that goes into it, especially being a small company in Canada. We kind of have a problem, and that is CSA is not all encompassing. So there's not a lot of standards that are actually usable, workable for us. So if I have, for instance, have a sit harness, I cannot use a
yeah.
CSA standard. There's no standard for sit harnesses. So I'm kind of
Right.
limited that way. And then, of course, the bigger market in North America is the US market. So you have to have
Yes.
ANSI. And then ANSI spills over into legislation in Canada as well. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
we deal with rope access. And rope access is brand new.
Yeah.
It's new to North America. So there's no standards for any of the standards to the equipment that we use. So we use CE for all our products. So we've over the last 20 years have learned that, okay, first we will work with CE certification. And there are 3 different sets of standards. One is recreational, I already mentioned it, adventure industry, we go with the CE certification. It's laboratory tested, we're audited as well. Once a year they come in, we have to make sure that everything meets the requirements. We have the traceability of the products, of the raw materials. And of course we do in-house testing as well. We have to show that we're ISO certified, ISO 9001. We do also that in-house. All our procedures, our quality assurance procedure are all in shape, and we work to those procedures. So it is a lot of work. It's the backbone of our company, basically, and you can't ignore it. There's maybe manufacturers out there that might not have all those certifications, but I would say we're one of the few that deal with basically the 3 major ones: CSA, because we're in Canada, NC, because we like to sell to the States because it's a bigger market, and CE because it has everything. And the other 2 are, one is industrial. So slings, for instance, good example. Slings here in Canada, we test them to the EN 795. And CSA doesn't have a standard for slings particular. Well, they do have it for anchor slings, for anchors in general, but we like the one from CE because it's a very difficult standard to meet and to maintain. So, and of course the last one, of course, and a lot of people don't realize that, we deal with rope access, and rope access is, and of course, a system. And a system, and many people don't realize that if you buy a particular product, and this is where compatibility comes in play. So if you buy a product from brand B and you want to marry it up with brand C, they might not work together. They might actually be lethal to you. So this is where the end user has some responsibility, or the company has some responsibility to make sure that if you marry 2 products, they actually fit together. With rope access, and this is where iRouter comes in play, and spread comes in play, and the companies come in play, where you're combining components together, and manufacturers that manufacture equipment use the CE certification for rope access to kind of meet those products together. And a good example is the old shunt, right? The old shunt was recreational. Had a standard from a recreational industry, and then we were using it in the industry. So it was kind of a mixed match, but we've been using it for such a long time successfully because we trained people really well in it, and we knew the dangers, that you mitigated that risk through your risk assessments. And rope access companies kind of, over the years have been lucky to grow and work together with other manufacturers to basically get what they needed that wasn't there in the beginning. And the old stop and shunt, that's how we started.
Yeah.
And now we don't need those 2 anymore. We have much better equipment that is available and much more choice. So it's a tricky one. Certification. We've been talking to CSA, and I can tell you that to test a few products, it's not feasible. Financially, it would be suicide. So we're not dealing with CSA directly because we can't afford it. Our market, the rope access market, is just too small to justify the cost of a logo. That's all what it is. So we're now talking to UL. United Laboratories in the States was accepted as a notified body as well. Their registration is in the Netherlands, which is great for us. So we might be able to combine the 2 together from the CE certification and our yearly audits, because at the moment we pay a lot of money from someone from the UK to come in to do an audit. We have to pay that out of our own pocket, of course, and that's a lot of money. And that's your module D certification or audit that you have to maintain. And we'll see what happens in the future. Like I said, that's one reason why we like to get into the fall protection market. It's a bit more market share, and with more money you can do more, of course. So that's kind of the approach that we are taking to it. Still being specialized, still targeting certain elements, certain industries, instead of going after maybe a market that just doesn't want to listen. Because that's the other part, right? You have plenty of markets, plenty of courses that I've taught, like yourself as well. You come in, and then there's an old guy sitting there. This is bullshit. I don't want to do this. At the end of the day, it's super exciting.
Absolutely. You're not going to teach me anything.
Yeah. So at the end of the day,
Yeah.
he's super excited, and he understands what you're trying to do, where you come from. You actually mean what you're saying. You're just not there to give them a certificate. You actually are passionate about
Yes.
it, and you have answers, right? Because you've done the job
Yeah.
yourself. And that is definitely an element that we like to introduce with the products, to marry the two together and use rope access
Excellent.
companies and the training companies to as a springboard to give that higher quality of service to those people that are working height. And don't forget, anybody working height in Canada, the majority is not legally how do you call it, suitable or up to speed to really be at height. And the one question I often ask people: so okay, you have a harness, you have a lanyard, you have your anchor, perfect. What about your rescue? And then there's silence because they don't have a rescue plan. And in Ontario, they often
Yeah.
think 911. Oh, yeah.
Call 911 and they're the end all be all.
Yeah, no, especially on the wind turbines.
Yeah.
You're in a rural area with a volunteer fire department. They might not even have harnesses. So how are you going to be saved?
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
tricky one, right? And this is where our industry, rope access industry, comes in, because we are not afraid of tackling those rescues. Most fall
Mhm.
protection companies might not even have the capabilities of training these courses or the equipment,
Yeah.
or this. It's a challenging market, and I think it's not a commodity. And I think that's where we can be more supportive to the general industry. And I think, like I said, I'm hopeful about it, that we grow, because we have the knowledge. That's not something that we
Yeah.
try to. We might not help everybody. Like I said, we might be very specific in the markets that we want to serve, but it comes together with certification cost. We have had NFPA on the Viking harness, and I gave up on it because we didn't sell enough of it to justify the cost. 3 months, UL will come in to have an audit done, and that's $1,200. So 4 times a year, and if you sell only 50 harnesses to a fire department in Canada, what's the point, right? You just don't make enough money to
Yeah.
justify it. So there's
Yeah, that's
definitely
fair.
a financial aspect to it, and that's
Yeah.
yeah. I see that
Yep.
is a problem. It's going to be a problem in the future as well. Even CE now, in the old days, up to a few years ago, you were able to maintain your CE certification forever. They have changed that. Now you have to renew it every 5 years. So there are companies
Right.
out there, they might have 2,000 products certified. They might bring it back to 200. Or a company that used to have 200 products, they might bring it back to 20. Because it's the golden
Yeah.
rule of 80-20. 20% of your products sell they bring you back to 80% of the money. So you want to, it's
Yeah.
a balancing act. And our market is going to suffer because of it, because we're not big enough. So we need to make that jump into work at height to justify it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, so anybody out there that is in Canada that wants to support local and support Canadian manufacturing, check them out. Yeah, exactly, right? It's the little fish on the in the big sea there, right? Everyone knows and understands the big companies and knows, this is what it is and this is all we're gonna get. But there are other options out there. So, if you're in the position to make calls with the organization, the company you're working with, give these guys a shout, and maybe you can work out some sort of a relationship moving forward.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. That's all I have for today. For the people out there that want to reach you, what is the best way for them to contact you?
Go to our website. There's a contact information form, eyolf.ca, and you'll be able to find us. Or, of course, on social media, right here.
Yeah. Excellent. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for your time. Pleasure chatting with you again. And, for myself personally, on a personal note, I have been using their harness. As you can see, it's here somewhere, for the last, number of months. At the beginning of COVID, I was just like, I need a new harness. And I thought, why not support local? So I contacted them, and they were nice enough to, get back to me and send me a harness. So muchly appreciated. I've quite enjoyed using it in the training environment. I've had it on a couple window washing jobs and a couple other little jobs here in the city, and it's comfortable. It does its job, and I have no complaints with it. So yeah, if you want to take anyone's word, you can at least take mine. So
Perfect.
all right, well, thank you very much, and we'll chat later.
Sounds good. Thank you. Bye.
All right, well, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. It was a pleasure kind of sitting down and talking to Igor about, the things that he's doing and the things that he's looking at doing. So if you like this episode, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the bell for notifications as I put new content every Sunday, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time.